Well, hello everybody. In 2 minutes' time, the recording will start for our meeting, and then after 10 minutes, so 12 minutes from now, we'll be straight into the main event, which is the Facebook page, Harry's Facebook page. Until then, rather like listening to the safety announcements on an aircraft, I'll go through some of the features that we have here on Autistic Radio. We make a live recording every Sunday, and then that live recording is kept as a replay on the Podbeam app. Within 24 hours, the recording will be compressed a little because the silences will be taken out, but the whole meeting and the whole Facebook will all be there to listen to. When we get to the actual meeting, there's a different version of that, and that is an edited version that's available within a couple of weeks, a podcast made from the conversation. But the conversation is a lot shorter. We use a lot less of the information, so an hour and a half conversation might be 45 minutes. The reason we leave the original recording for you to listen to is so that you can hear us how it actually happens, with all of the breaks and difficulties, to make it look an easy process. If you see what was before the 1.5 hours, before it became the 45 minutes, it should be an easier thing to join. Now, that's my 2 minutes gone. 10 minutes from now, we'll be straight into the Facebook. Here's Liz to introduce us.
Well, before I introduce us, I've got a technical query because I have entered the studio,
Yep.
and under the recording bit it says recording error, and if I open the tab to access the chat or recordings, it wants to send me to YouTube, which has not happened before.
Just leave all that. And
so, okay.
I
don't know if I'm recording or not. This might be...
You're definitely being recorded, because I'm recording
Okay.
in 2 other methods as well as backups.
Okay, good. Otherwise, it's going to be an interesting live podcast, just sort of some dead air, and then us going, well, that's an interesting comment, Liz, and no one's heard. Yeah, okay, fine. So
well, this proves, if somebody's listening on the replay now, this proves that what we do is we have the, everybody is settling down into their different places. Morris has just arrived in his studio. You're there in your studio. It's a very natural circumstance, isn't it?
It is indeed. So this is Spectrum Voices Conversations. We are here every Sunday, 6 p.m. UK time and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. We're here for an hour and a half, so 7:30 p.m. UK time and 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we log off. We start off with a bit of an open meeting discussion, so an update on the non-radio live things that we're doing, which eventually people will hear because we're working on them. And then we go into a discussion of the Facebook. So we'll kick off first with our open meeting. Jules, what have you got for us? Updates. Let us know what's happening.
Well, wow, we've got an awful lot to do this week. So we've got 2 big recordings coming up. And well, we've got should I talk about the controversial one first? Yes, I shall talk about the controversial one. It's Susie Yardley, who is somebody quite important in the UK SBA, United Kingdom Society of Behavioural Analysts. I might start the conversation with her, almost asking why she was willing to join us and why she was willing to have the conversation with us. It's taken a long time to get the people who use ABA to come and talk with us. I think it's going to be a long process to keep them talking with us. I think we're going to have to be very aware that there are certain things that they will be shy of talking about, but I hope over a period of time that we will get into some quite involved conversations with them. But I'm very aware that we're going to have to be very careful to not make it difficult for them to talk to us. So there's going to be a lot of compromises. We're not going to be able to perhaps go straight to the point about some of the fears or concerns we have about ABA. We have to try and learn and listen to where they're coming from, and that's a tricky thing. And I think we're actually going to end up being criticised by some people for it. But hopefully it will all come out in the wash. Are you feeling relatively confident about that, Liz and Morris?
Oh, it's way too soon to say about that. I haven't had any involvement with the, making relationships with the people we've spoken to previously. The only thing I wanted to say is that it sounds like we're making some reasonable adjustments for them in order for them to feel comfortable having a conversation with us, and that's just a standalone sort of point that's also quite pointed. And I think that's all I have to say on that one at the moment.
I think we should remember that. And yes, we're making reasonable adjustments for an organisation to enable the communication of that organisation with us. Potentially, if we're very fortunate, we might be able to train them into some new behaviours. Do you think that might be possible?
I'm not the sort of person that would manipulate or train somebody else's behaviours without their explicit consent and willing for those behaviours to want to be changed. Well, no, I've got friends. I've had friends who've wanted help with various things, whether it's making a change of habit or a change of thinking or getting through a mental health issue or whatever. And I'm quite happy to help people change their behaviour where they want to. What I don't want to do, what never works, in fact, is to try and manipulate people into changing their behaviour to suit me, because it doesn't work. And then on the odd occasion where it sort of looks like it's going to stick, I feel like shit, because I feel like I've manipulated someone into changing themselves to suit me, and like that's just not okay. That's not cool. So no, I won't be manipulating. I'll be supporting behaviour change that the individual wants to change.
Liz,
and that really is all I'm saying on it.
You made it so I had to mute myself and laugh and then come back on because of all the different nuances in what you're saying there. And I think a lot of people are going to see them loud and read them loud and clear. Yes, it's too early, but we're trying and we're moving in that direction. So I've only got a few more minutes left to say that the edit with another ABA practitioner, Mr. Bunyan, who is also autistic, has been sent over to him. He's checking it out with his organisations. I can't put it out there until everybody's happy with it. And I'm intending to put out a group of conversations that have happened with ABA practitioners or behaviour analysts as a little group, so that they all come out together and we'll see what happens. We'll hope that that group of podcasts that we put out will encourage others to come and speak about it. I think later on, I'm sure that people from the autistic community will want to speak about what they hear and read, and that will be possible too. At the moment, my intention is to try and get this part of the conversation working most, and yeah. We have a recording also this week with it's a repeat. We've got a meet up with Sean from Autistic Knowledge Development. That's also on Monday. So Sean's the 10 o'clock slot on Monday, 10 to 11, and he also is going to have a little bit of a conversation with us off the record. And then Susie ABA starts at 11:30 till 12:30. Quite a busy day. Then we have the Spectrum Voices meeting every week, 10 till 11, and I'm keeping that without a recording so that we can have a talk about some of the things that we've been doing. I think we need to have a bit of a chat and a decompress after our conversation with we had a conversation with an outside organisation this week, and we need to have a talk about that. So hopefully everybody will, if you had the opportunity to come to any of those meetings, Liz, I don't know if you do.
I will be repairing fences and boardwalks in a park on Tuesday, which is important for my local community.
Yep.
But if you can just give me salient points by email, that would be really handy.
Okay, what about the Monday?
No, I've got stuff on. I'm busy all day tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, obviously they'll all come out in the wash. They'll all be made into podcasts, and you'll be able to hear it all through.
It'd be really interesting to get Colette back in
Yes.
in a month or two, perhaps pick some of the. I mean, she may already be listening to the recordings that we've put out on ABA, but I think her voice, her perspective is very interesting within that conversation, because she knows a lot about behaviour change and autism. She is very knowledgeable and really easy to listen to as well. So I think her contributions will be interesting, even if it's just a chat with her about what did she think about one or two recordings. You know,
Okay.
just getting conversation with her would be really cool.
I wonder if you can make a contact over there, it's particularly after I've put out this little group of ABA recordings, so that she has a little bit of a prior, and then she can come back and talk with us about how floor time is different to that.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, same
Okay, we'll
page. I
work on
think
that.
we're on there.
There's two big
Cool.
things. Nick Glover wants to be really associated with us. He's going to work with us. He's going to be part of our team, so that's good. Eventually I'm going to try and convince him to have Autistic Radio Australia, but I haven't told him that yet. And we've also got another
Well, you just have, because he's listening. So
well, he might be. You're right.
massive surprise.
Well,
just in case.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning, so he won't be listening to it yet. And the other thing, I had a very interesting conversation, email with a guy who has written a book. He's autistic. He's a lorry driver, and he's going to come and speak with us. Made a recording date with a positive way of looking at autism as a professional person working out there with a job. So that's another little thing we've got coming up, and I'm passing over to you a minute late, and I apologise for overrunning. Sorry. Any other business? No, let's go then, Liz.
Cool. Okay. Well, we don't need to worry about overrunning. We're a little bit fluid with time here, but this is Spectrum Voices Conversation, the Facebook portion of our Sunday night broadcast. So we're going over to our Facebook page. This is curated by Harry. So he finds stuff on social media, he shares it through the Autistic Radio page, and then that kind of forms the basis of our Sunday night conversation. So it gives us little jumping off points, little springboards, I think you might call it in the business world, for conversations. So this is us. We're here every Sunday night. We chat about stuff on Facebook. We are also an open door organisation. So if people want to jump on Podbeam or come through the app, that way you'll have to talk to Julian about that. But that's doors are always open. So we'll kick off with our first Facebook post. So we go reverse order. So the most recent one we posted was about an hour ago. So Harry's been busy. This is a post from One Blog at a Time. Page description is, I'm 24 years old advocate. Come and join me on this education, autism, mental health, and TikTok. So they have a TikTok page or site. I don't know. I'm too old to be using TikTok. I'm older than their core demographic. So the post is a picture of three female-looking people, arms crossed, looking at the camera. And the text is, Season 2 of Kind of Spark is now on BBC iPlayer. All three characters are played by autistic actresses. I love it when autistic people are played the main characters in a TV programme. I really enjoy watching this new season, and I'm hoping more shows, films are played by autistic people. I mean, I have not seen this. This is going on the list, that's in capitals, the list of things I want to watch. I've just finished watching Dinosaur on BBC, which is a sitcom about an autistic paleontologist, hence the name Dinosaur, and her family that's kind of changing around her, and all of the, hilarity that ensues. So I haven't seen this program, but I've just finished watching one about an autistic paleontologist, and it was really well done. I think we're getting to a place where we have better, more authentic representation of autistic people on television. I was a bit nervous about watching it because the Guardian review said, and she's spiky and funny in ways that have nothing to do with her autism. And then I watched it and I'm like, those are all really autistic traits.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously there's a bit of I think there's this sort of like well-meaning thing in wider society. There are people that but you shouldn't be defined by your autism. We've had this conversation so many times. I'm not going to go into that whole thing again, but actually there's a lot of things that I saw Nina, the character in Dinosaur, do, then I'm like, that's fully autistic. That's really autistic. I do exactly the same thing and I am told that it's strange. Normal people, in inverted commas, don't do this. So yeah, the Dinosaur was a really good watch, and I'm hoping that Kind of Spark is similar. Another good watch. So I shall, I'll watch that. Has anyone watched it?
Yeah, I'm gonna make Dinosaur available through our website so that people who can't watch the BBC in their region can get an autistic friendly version. I'll doctor up the sound, remove some of the background music and such like, and make it accessible to autistic people so that it fits within the copyright laws. I'm in Scotland, so we know Janie Godley, we know Ashley Story, her daughter. Ashley's the autistic person who is in the Dinosaur, and I think she's the writer as well as the actress. Ashley Story also has a 2-hour radio programme on BBC Scotland, which you can get on the iPlayer if you've got access to the iPlayer. I think you can get that around the world. So Ashley Story is a very positive representation of a version of autism for us up here in Scotland.
Awesome, thank you. I'm just in the process of following her on Facebook, and then obviously now I've come off the page we're supposed to be on. That's awesome. Well, well done for making that available when we've done that.
Yeah,
it is really good.
She's done a lot of work, Ashley. We've also got this thing at the moment with Fern Brady, another autistic person who is hitting the big time. Actually, after her book came out, she's got a Netflix series.
Nice.
And she's got autism in the title of her Netflix series. So that's gonna be another one of these things. She's another version of non-male autism.
Cool. Yeah, I love Fern Brady. She's so funny. Did you see her on Taskmaster?
Yes.
Yeah, I have to say there are a few tasks where I was like, I think there should have been some reasonable adjustments for this. a bit of a clearer explanation.
When she
I needed a clearer explanation. Oh, was she not? Oh,
no,
okay.
No, we were watching at home. We were saying, that person is autistic.
Oh no, when I watched her on Taskmaster, she was already out. She was
Okay,
out when it aired.
she was out when it
Yeah,
aired. Okay,
yeah,
I didn't know
definitely.
that because we
Yeah,
were watching it
yeah.
and we were thinking, right, then it became something we knew that she'd come out as autistic. So I thought there was a miss. Yeah. Anyway, there we go.
Cool. Well, the next post is from the neurodivergent adults. Page description there is creating videos about neurodivergent adult life, run by ADHD married to autistic. So they post autism and ADHD memes. The post itself is text on a multicolored background. It's autism fact number 27 out of 30. There's probably more, but this is the 30 in their series. It reads, autism can impact a person differently each day. Something that may have been easy for them yesterday may be impossible today. The further text under the image reads, something that may have caused a meltdown last week might be a cause for excitement this week. It all depends on the context of the situation. Equally, there are some things that an autistic person might always find distressing, no matter what the context around their week is. This is why education about autism is so important and also so individualized. And there's a few hashtags for autism and Autism Acceptance Month. What do we think about that?
Really important, isn't it? It's almost like somebody who has back pain, isn't it? People are surprised when they see somebody who has a deformation in their spine that makes them physically in pain. Sometimes they don't have pain. Sometimes they are able to walk. Sometimes they're having to walk with a stick. Sometimes they're having to use a wheelchair. Sometimes it almost looks as though they could run a marathon, because it's variable. The pain is variable. The situation is variable, and my brain is variable as well. Some things that are quite normal to me become impossible, and sometimes it doesn't compute with people. If you can do it one occasion, why can't you do it on the other occasion?
Yeah, I'm someone whose brain and body plays a different game with me every single day. So there are some days where my hip just goes, no, sorry, you're not walking a long way today. I'm just going to make you hurt. And I'm also going to make your right shoulder hurt just because of the way I'm making you walk. And there are other days where I can walk for 6 miles and I'm fine. It's completely variable. I'm meeting a friend tomorrow. I say meeting a friend, we'll have to see, because she has she's got metal rods in her back and she has other health conditions. So we've made a plan to meet. Will it happen? We're not going to know until the day, because every single day is variable. Yeah, it's a really important point, I think. And not just from a neurodivergence point of view, but also from an invisible, like physical disability point of view. There's a meme I've seen that I really I hate this meme. I really hate it. It is a picture taken of somebody in a supermarket, obviously without their consent. It's somebody who uses a wheelchair, and they have stood up out of their wheelchair in order to grab something off a high shelf. So somebody's taken a picture of this person accessing something off a high shelf, and then they've put a caption on it that's like, oh, it's a miracle, you're cured, all this kind of get a job nonsense. And that is so ignorant. There are people who use wheelchairs who are ambulatory, but they can't walk for more than maybe 10 paces before that's all their body can do. There are people with a multitude of different conditions that mean that while they are physically able to walk, they can't do it in any sustainable way. And it's one of the things that I think people who have no experience, personal or within their social circle, they have no experience of what it's like to have some kind of limiting condition that stops you from doing things on one day and not on another, or stops you from doing things in the way that everybody else does them, or to the extent somebody else does them. And it's ignorance and it's inexperience, and unfortunately I think the ignorance can't be cured until somebody has the experience.
Yeah, it's variable, and it needs to be one of the things that's put in the most basic information. Have we lost you, Liz?
No, I just wasn't sure if Maurice wanted to say anything, and I was about half a second from coming in and saying the next thing.
He's got a difficulty, I think, with his he's trying to restart a broken laptop.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
So the next post
I'll type
is,
him if yeah.
Cool. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can see the chat without kicking myself out again.
No, don't bother.
Anyway, right. I mean, if I disappear, you know what's happened. I've ejected myself. So the next post is one of our podcasts. It's a revisit. Oh no, it's a new podcast, and that's our Live and Unmasked from the 7th of April. So that's there. You can listen to it through the Facebook Live. Just listen to it on our page, or you can get it on Podbeam or off our website. So that's just us talking about the stuff that was on Facebook that week. The next one is us again. This is like Pass the Parcel with multiple layers, where it's us again. Just us saying that we are live now, which we are. So that's nice and meta. The next one is from Chloe Hayden. She's a blogger. I think she's also an actress. She's from Australia. And this post is it's a couple of pictures of her. She's on the front cover of the big issue. It's a really, really bright cover. So really like acid lime green background, and then her name in pastels, and her looking kind of fierce on the cover. One of the pictures is a text on a background, and it says, it's a quote from her, and it says, "I think all of us have a box we're supposed to fit into. A lot of autistic people have decided, fuck it, that box isn't mine. I'm not going to force myself into it." It really is a very small population that does comfortably fit. So the majority of people have to contort themselves, and they can fit into it, but it's uncomfortable. I think some people see autistic people simply refusing to even acknowledge the box, and that makes them uncomfortable. Well, I have to fit into this. Why don't you? Well, you don't have to fit into it. The box doesn't exist. So you read it. It's makes much more sense than me reading it out and putting my dramatic inflections on it. But that's a really, really good point. In fact, it was the theme of SpellX 2024. You can see all of SpellX 2024 on the IASC, so I-ASC YouTube channel. And the theme was outside the box or inside the box. It was all to do with the box, kind of a theme that I think everyone can relate to it, but autistic people especially, we often feel like we're supposed to fit into this box, but we don't want to fit into the box. And why does the box even exist in the first place, I think, is the point of Chloe's post there. What do you think about that?
Well, it's got to be said, hasn't it? there's always room for somebody to be in your face and push the envelope, and I think that's what Chloe Hayden's managing to do in Australia. I love the big issue. I always try and get a big issue whenever I see one for sale, and obviously it supports a good cause of people homelessness. So the big issue all the way around the world is an important, but it's not just about having the opportunity to give a vendor some money. It's also a good magazine to read, and often these kind of things are available through the big issue. Would you like me to read Harry's blog so you get a rest on that one?
Is that? Oh, I think there's another post in between.
Okay.
That one and Harry's blog. So I'll do this one, and then you can read Harry's blog.
Okay.
You can even do the accent if you feel up to it.
I wouldn't dare.
So the next post is shared from Literally Autistic. Page description is Autistic mum with autistic kids, believer in neurodiversity and the value of disabled humans. And the post says, I've seen several shares recently about what surprised people when they received their autism assessment results. Here's mine. My assessor noted that I did not ask reciprocal questions about her and spoke mainly about myself during my professional assessment, which consisted primarily of talking about myself, because that's what an adult autism assessment is. Did your write-up include anything that shocked you? And then in parentheses, it's very pretentious. Though this is a question obviously aimed at those who have had access to a professional diagnosis, I want to note that self-identified autistic people are always valid and welcome in my space. I mean, that's just... Oh, God, where do I start with this? I mean, somebody who's assessing an adult for autism, like, really needs to understand that context is massively important. So I didn't ask any reciprocal questions to the person administering my diagnostic interview because it was a diagnostic interview at which I was the subject and somebody else was asking the questions. So the context there is.
Would there be reciprocal questions?
I mean, I don't know what the fuck this. I'm honestly. I remember seeing this and just going, what? And then thinking, have I missed? Is this another social cue I've missed? And then I'm like, no, this isn't a social cue I've missed. This is some just weird bullshit. If I'm in a social situation where we're having a conversation, I mean, it doesn't come naturally to ask reciprocal questions. And after every social interaction, I'm like, I didn't ask what your children's names were, all the stuff that most people do. And then it comes to me like several hours later, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot the really obvious question. But generally, I remember in a social situation, if someone says, what do you do for a living? You answer the question and then you ask it back. That's kind of the way these social things work. But that's a conversation between two equal humans in a social context. So there's a very clear context of two people finding out about each other. In an assessment, I really don't give a shit what the assessor's childhood was like and whether they liked playing with their toys or lining them up. That's not important. That's a waste of time. I'm paying for this. You know what I mean? I'm not going to ask you questions about your childhood when we're here for a different reason. This whole post just baffled me. It really did.
I had a great time during my diagnosis session with the doctor, the psychiatrist, because I explained I was there to validate my own personal diagnosis, that I had diagnosed myself, and that I was there to give her all the evidence so that she could fit it in. And she smiled and accepted that. I didn't ask her any reciprocal questions. Not what business of mine was to ask this professional about her own personal psyche. No, I was there to describe my version of what I could see so that she had all the information.
Right? Wouldn't it be massively inappropriate for you to start administering a diagnostic interview backwards? Like, that would be massively
Exactly.
inappropriate, wouldn't it? I
I
mean,
could
I can
have.
tell
I
that,
mean,
and I'm autistic. I don't get social cues, and even I can tell that's inappropriate. Yeah. Oh my God. That whole post was just a like, is this some other kind of layer of social stuff that I've still got to figure out? I thought it was nearly there. Damn. Yeah. But did your write up include anything that shocked you though? Because I have to say, when I read my report back, I was like, who is this? I don't recognise
no,
this
no.
person.
I didn't pay for mine. I got mine on the NHS, so my diagnosis could have been fitted on the back of an A4 envelope. In fact, I asked after having the conversation and her being absolutely fine. Yes, I agree. You know, this is what you come across. We used to call people like you Asperger's. We now call you autistic spectrum. But don't worry, you're still the same person as came in. You know, very nice. I asked a few weeks later for something in writing in case I ever needed it, and it was a fairly short, very accurate, very pithy, really well constructed letter of what I had essentially demonstrated and what her opinion was. You know, really tiny. I think a lot of professionals make a real meal out of these to make money, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, mine was it was an interesting read. Like, I don't like reading my full report because it's a little bit kind of having the mirror shoved in your face. Like, oh, this is actually what I'm like to people that don't know me. Um, I did get a separate report, one that I can give to employers that gives them a bit more, without all the personal stuff in, but more of a kind of, this is what Liz struggles with, and this is how to support Liz. This is what Liz will need in an employment situation. So far, it has not come in handy, but that's nothing to do with the report, more to do with the people that read it, who also said, this doesn't sound like you at all. All I can say to that really is that I'm really, really good at masking. And that's, how I got to my mid-30s without anybody knowing.
I think that is the thing about you really do have to leave the mask at the door before you go in for your assessment. You have all the skills that we have built up to cope with these situations. You just have to kind of put them next to you and then just be this bare version of yourself, and that's hard sometimes to do. It's hard to be that vulnerable when you have been building up your armor all these years.
Especially when the chair you're sitting on has got some weird, like, extra springs in it, and every time you shift slightly, it's like being bounced on a trampoline. I just assumed that was part of the assessment to see whether I could cope with the sensory input of being bounced from below every time I shifted. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm just oversensitive to proprioceptive influences, which, to be fair in itself, is diagnostic. Anyway, you're going to read out Harry's blog.
Yes, just to stop you from using a Scotch accent, Harry. When you edit this, you'll thank me. It's Harry's blog, and I always read these blogs because it always makes me think. Harry leaves a blog on the Facebook page every so often when something inspires him. He's revisited a previous blog piece. It's Autism Month. The word autism is part of a language spectrum that differs from person to person. For some people, the word autism is an identity, something that is part of who they are and a part of their whole being, a different way of having their brain working, and an individual way of living. For other people, the word autism is a medical diagnosis and something which needs to be supported either through family care and medical and social professional advice, something to treat or something to fix. Other people believe that autism is a special skill within them in which their brain process gives an advantage in a particular area of interest. And Harry says that none of these are wrong. In fact, he's lived his life going through this route of thinking since his diagnosis at the age of 17. Since his diagnosis was determined via a health crisis, the routine began with the medical diagnosis. And I accepted this, as I felt limited in my personal capacity. As my confidence grew and I learnt to progress in a field of interest, being administration work, for many different organisations, by the time I'd reached my 30s, the special skill became my way of thinking. Now in my 40s, with the first two parts of that route completed, I've become more comfortable with identity, feeling that life experience up to this point has enhanced my thinking, and no longer do I feel limited as a person, just different. Not everybody will follow this route, or even move from their initial way of thinking. We are all different, after all. My point is not to feel bad for feeling how you feel. Only you can know you. That's what being an individual person is all about. Harry. I liked that the first time I saw Harry write, and I like that every time I see it again.
I think Harry has a real way with words. He's very good at expressing himself in a, not long-winded kind of way. I think it's very accessible way that he's written it, and it's a really accessible thought, and I think it's relevant to absolutely everyone who goes on the journey, however far they go with the journey on understanding their neurotype.
He
I
is a
mean, for
poet,
me,
after all.
is he doesn't do enough poetry. He needs to do
He
more.
used to do a lot more. I'm not sure whether we can convince him to share his poetry with us now. I don't know.
Okay. But yeah, no, he does have a good way with words. I think my route with this kind of, if we look at it as three stages, I think mine started the other way, because the idea that I might be autistic started. I mean, I'm not going to say I wasn't in crisis at the time, but I started it more from an identity point of view, as in, is this what's been up with me my whole life? Is this what the deal is with me? Because by that point, with the whole issue of why am I like this, had become, well, it was part of my identity, because I was trying to work out who the hell I am. Like, why does my brain work like this? Why is this how I react to the world? So I kind of started at the identity part of it. Yeah, that was my beginning on this journey, and then I found out about how some people see it as something they live with, and it's very much a medical thing that needs treatment, and other people see it as the superpower narrative. This is my superpower, this is why I'm so good at the things I'm good at. And I think over everyone's lifetime, everyone's journey with this, I think people will touch on most of the points in that journey. I think people will draw something from every angle there, to reach their individual understanding and acceptance of neurotype. Because there are certainly things where I see, like, the reason I'm so good at this is because of the autism. The reason I'm so good at finding litter and finding the tiny seedlings of Himalayan balsam before anyone else can see them, that's autism. That's my amazing visual processing, and that's because of the way my brain works. So I would say that's a superpower. However, there are other things that I really struggle with because of the way my brain works. But, together they're my identity. So I think I kind of started in one place, went down a couple of different routes and almost ended up back at the beginning, but not at the beginning. I just ended up in the same place with the same understanding and acceptance, just a bit chronologically further down the road.
I think that's so interesting what you're saying there, Liz, because it's the same as me. I didn't start from a deficit point of view. I was first introduced to the idea of neurodivergence and neurodiversity before the word autism was said. And the person helping me with that, who knew me so well, had essentially worked out a whole program of how to speak to me about this conversation. And then after that, I started to realise, that autism had such an association with such a wide group of people that I hadn't really considered before. And I saw the humanity and the empathy that was natural to me with people who are extremely different to me. So it started with neurodivergence. I was told that the reason I hadn't struggled during my life was my fierce intelligence. That was how it was sold to me, and my ego was quite willing to carry that. I was quite happy to be told, you're so intelligent that even though you are this thing that other people have difficulty with, you seem to manage it. So it was very well, there was a lot of sugar in the medicine.
This was a proper shit sandwich, wasn't it? Made with love, sourdough.
It just made such sense in such a short period of time, and I didn't have any of the problems that other people who find about this historically in a different way, from being treated badly, from being treated as a medical problem, to then being, who have to do the journey that Harry's described. I agree that all of those aspects are important, but they weren't in that order for me at all, and they're all kind of a parallel thing that's going on for me right now.
I kind of straddle the other two and run a mile from the superpowers, but that's also work. I mean, the identity is a continuum, although it's in kind of defined bands, because you're certainly not locked out of other boxes by being in one box. A Venn diagram as well, I could think of. I don't mind seeing some things as deficits, because there are things I didn't manage to keep up with. But in an independent-minded way, hence also identity. All part of the palette.
That's what being an individual person is all about, in Harry's own words. So it's almost like he's here. So our next post is from Autism to Max. It's a personal blog, rising creator, adult autistic, also CPTSD and SPD. I'm also a wife, a mum, and a meemaw, proving it can be done. I think meemaw is an American term for grandmother, like kind of like nana or granny, but meemaw seems to be, I don't know, I've heard it a lot coming from America. CPTSD is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, SPD being sensory processing disorder, I think. Please do let us know if I've got that wrong. It's an image with text over it. The image is sort of female looking person looking to camera, but it's hand drawn, it's not a photograph. And the text says, "It really isn't about who wants you in life, it's about who respects and values you in life that really matters." Thoughts on that?
Meaning it's certainly not anyone who suddenly completely loses their temper and rag with you for sticking up for your fairness rights about something that they've always got on well with you before, as someone did this week. Just another example of autistic people not being saints to each other.
I understand where you're coming from there, Morris. We are often in an absolute minefield as autistic people trying to associate with each other, aren't
we? We can't always take the reading and the theory about us as actual guides. If we'd bought each other, we'd take them back to the shop and say the guide was written wrong.
I take your point entirely, that autistic people are often given this whole group of powers that they're supposed to have, the fairness and seeing the other side and seeing, and a lot of the time autistic people behave quite badly, and they behave quite badly for all kinds of reasons, and we need other autistic people to call them out, because it really helps if it comes from one of your own people. However, we tend to all come from a position of some kind of social trauma. So, as difficult as it can be, seeing somebody behave in a rather bad way and being on the end of it, often it really needs us to empathise from our own understanding of autism and see how that poor behaviour might be temporary, might have come from nowhere and go away again, and I think we can always patch things over, sort things out, talk things out if we go at it a bit gently after we've calmed down. I think we tend to get ourselves into into a certainty of things having been out of balance, and that's really difficult for us. It takes a while for us to cool down on it.
I never read much about reflexes. I don't mean physical reflexes. Emotional reflexes, I suppose, of response. I don't think that's been found distinctive about us. I suppose it's not distinctive, and it overlays some other things that would be distinctive.
I think using that word reflex is a very wise thing you're doing there, Morris, because I believe my own bad behaviour or behaviour that I regret often comes as a reflex, as I didn't know it was going to happen, and it just happens, and then I have to pick up the pieces of the damage I've done. and that suppressing something for a while, and the thing I've been suppressing might be nothing to do with the person who receives the reflex. And there's just a lot of unfairness out there that's accidental.
It's still a determinant of whether they value your state of being or not.
You're right, but people fuck it up. They fuck it up, and I fuck it up, and you, well, I don't know whether you fuck it up, but I know I fuck it up often enough.
Certainly the folks who are more considered and processed, and their reactions are the ones that are going to fit better the description here of who to build up with. Who around you takes the virtues, whether they're around you by chance or by convergence of doing particular things.
I think this is one of the things that you need autistic people to inform about when you're dealing with groups of autistic people, when you're trying to give information to them or help them or create a project for them. This is the kind of stuff that autistic people know about each other that might not be so comfortable for holistic people to deal with. So that's why it's important for us to be involved with these things.
I feel like I've read a completely different post to you guys because I'm totally lost on relating that conversation to the post. Yeah.
You may have missed an email that went round the group from Morris.
Right. Oh, okay.
Well, sure, it's about who values you and who doesn't, and who gives a damn when anything arises. Doesn't just see you as an object just stuck there to be brushed aside.
I mean, coming back to the post, it is important to remember in all relationships, friendships, loving relationships, family relationships, that it is about respect and it is about being valued. That's what we are always looking for as human beings. And I think sometimes autistic people are often in situations where they compromise their own sense of their own value, and they put up with disrespect, and it's difficult to balance that. And it's also difficult just here on a radio program to say you should stand up for yourself or you should only be. It's all very complex. It's always nudging people in a direction to say that they do matter, they are valuable, and the people around them should make them feel valued and respected.
Yeah, I mean, post aside, I think it's an interesting. It's just a bit of a lens on the idea of personal perspective and how different people react to different things at different times in their life. I mean, if we scroll up a couple of posts, it's about how autism can impact a person differently each day. And then we can see that various reactions to this post are coloured by your own personal recent experience and your personal relationship to what this post is trying to say. So this post, all posts in fact, will speak differently to different people depending on their general worldview, but also their immediate circumstances. Yeah, there are some memes I can see one day where I think, oh, that's quite funny. And then other days where I may have just read something about a particular topic, or I've had a conversation with a friend about a particular topic, and then I see a meme that yesterday I'd have thought was funny, and today I think that's a bit close to the line, isn't it? So that's just yeah, I think that's just well, that's one of the aspects of being a person interacting with other people. Actually, it's just an aspect of humanity, something that social media often throws a little spotlight on. If you read the comments on literally any post, there's all these disagreements. I think it says this, I think it says that. Yeah, I mean, when I read the post, I thought what that's trying to get at is there are lots of people that want you in their life because of the things you can do for them. So look at who actually respects and values you and put your energy there, rather than the people who keep you in their life because of something you can do for them. I think that's something that autistic people often it's one of the ways we can often be taken advantage of, because we may want to feel wanted, but if we don't have a lot of frame of reference for what that means in a healthy sense, we're quite likely to be taken advantage of in the kind of, oh, well, this person, I can ring them at whatever time of the day or night and they'll come and pick me up from wherever and give me a lift, or, just as an example. I think that's why sometimes we can be taken advantage of socially, because if we're people pleasing, because we want to be accepted, we'll do things that we don't want to do because we think that will make other people like us. It doesn't help with the liking, it helps with the wanting. I want you in my life because you serve a purpose, but I don't respect you or value your time because I'm using you. That's what I was getting from like the post. That's what I was thinking it was getting at. But it just goes to show that everyone's recent experience and long-term experience all comes together to create our own individual view of life, and it colours our individual response to everything.
Yeah, the context we see. No, I can remember a context like that. Just now you describe it, I can see that it's another angle that comes from those words. So I think both our angles and probably several more all come from them. But yeah, someone in my book someone in my youth. It was pretty one-sided about things we should do together. Her ideas what to do, she'd get quite huffy unless I agreed to them, and my ideas what to do, I was finding she just practically never took up, and obviously to find reasons not to bother with them. And It didn't take very long to find that toxically unbalanced.
I think your experience is very common amongst us autistic people. I've lived a lot of unbalanced relationships, but as you get older, the more you're able to look at relationships and see whether they're reciprocal, and it's looking to see if it doesn't have to be balanced, but there does have to be some kind of reciprocation coming from the other person that does seem to give you respect in the friendship, or value in the friendship. It doesn't have to be balanced. It can be so far out of balance but still have a value. And the other thing is that sometimes when you feel it's unbalanced, you're unaware of some of the things that should be put on one side or the other of the scales. You might not realise that's how somebody is going out of the way for you. So it needs to be something that we think about, definitely, that whether there is reciprocation, whether there is respect, and whether there is this kind of friendship abuse that happens, you know. I'm going to mention that Justin has been texting, and he said that he says that we do get advantage of very often, and then he's changed it to sometimes. And he said that you're absolutely correct, Liz. He also wants us to know that he's had a nice visit from his aunt and uncle, and they celebrated birthday with Justin. So that's great. Happy birthday, Justin.
Yeah, happy birthday. Woohoo!
Raise a glass to it.
And then the other thing is that Justin has said it's reciprocation and respect, and he's put a big exclamation mark on that, and he says thanks to us for birthday wishes.
I just love the way that none of us decided it's appropriate to start singing happy birthday. And that's, I don't know any autistic people that like having happy birthday sung to them. And I think that's just such an authentic thing. If this was a neurotypical or holistic podcast, at least one of us would have burst into song. And then the rest of us would have felt like we had to, because, oh God, now we're singing happy birthday. We're just like, yeah, nice one. Let's move. let's not do the singing. Thank you. I just think that's beautiful. That's a proper celebration. I respect your wish not to be sung at.
Yeah, who wants to be put on spot? He's mentioned it, so we've mentioned it back. That's fine.
Yeah, that's enough. We don't need to. This isn't a musical. All right, our next post is from Neurodivergent Rebel. It's kind of long, but it's definitely worth reading the whole thing. Neurodivergent Rebel is Lyric Rivera. They are autism neurodiversity activists. They are have a very, very bright hair at the moment. It's very cool. They live the RV life with their partner David. I think I've got his name right. Anyway, so Neurodivergent Rebel's post is: I spent most of my life going about many things wrong due to misunderstandings about my brain. Although I am and always have been autistic, I did not know this crucial fact about myself for many years, wreaking havoc on my life. For almost the first 30 years of my life, I masked my autistic traits because those around me had convinced these traits were not there. Pushing through, denying, hiding, and ignoring over 25 years of regular headaches, migraines, vertigo, disorientation, physical pain, and overloads triggered by the unsupported differences that nobody knew I had. In my head, nobody else is complaining about the lights, sounds, and smells. I'm sure everyone is extremely uncomfortable, and I'm just being a complainer, as I've been called many times. I better just keep my discomfort to myself. no matter how bad it gets. People around me often didn't understand when I was upset by things they wouldn't be bothered by. Meltdowns and other kinds of overloads didn't make sense when I didn't view myself through the lens of autism. I didn't understand my triggers, how to avoid them, soothe myself, or even what these overloads were. Without this context, I became known as someone with a volatile temper who could be set off like a bomb. The pressures and stresses of the day would build, become too much, and then eventually, when I could hold things together no more, I would erupt like a shaken soda bottle, hitting everyone around me. As an adult, this explosive rage, fear, and anxiety became a significant source of shame, so I learned to conceal it, channeling all that anguish inwards towards myself, shutting down, stifling, denying, and delaying my feelings. Not knowing I was autistic, I learned to act like I was okay, even if I wasn't, because of how little compassion others gave me whenever I was overwhelmed. Other people felt I shouldn't be overwhelmed, and I internalized their feelings about how I should feel. Anyone relate?
Wow, I think that's lovely, and there's a link on that which we'll make sure is available to the Substack, because we know that Neurodivergent Rebel has always got something interesting to say to all of us.
It's a difficult one to obtain compassion at the same time as described to have been hitting out at the whole circle of people who the compassion is going to come from. Recognizing the real thing as being behind it is such a first step in that before you've reached that step, when they as far as they know, it's just the playing up behavior, then in search of for compassion, you wouldn't start from here.
I could definitely relate to this. When I was working, and I was running this butcher shop, and I had a couple of people that worked with me at various times, and they both did things completely innocently, but they both did things that were sensory triggers for me. At the time, I didn't know I was autistic. So what I did, I went for therapy. I went to therapy to deal with my anger issues because of how angry these things made me, these things that other people were doing. And what I learned in that therapy, and what I learned from society, was that I am not allowed to change other people's behavior for my comfort. You can imagine what a head fuck that gave me. I mean, that just made everything much worse, because not only was I turning it back in on myself, I was turning it back in on myself with the express permission of a therapist. So I was being not just implicitly told by society, but explicitly told that these were my problems that I had to deal with, and it was my anger issues. And actually, it wasn't my anger issues at all. I don't have anger issues. I always thought I had anger issues. I don't. I have sensory sensitivities. And when those are not addressed, I cannot discharge the internal pressure that happens in my brain when I'm sensorily overloaded. And when I can't get away from it, and I can get away from it sometimes, I've learned how to do that, and I've got strategies in place, but they're not always accessible. I can't always get away from it. And when I can't get away from it and I'm continually overloaded, it comes out as anger. So I look like the arsehole. I'm the arsehole that can't deal with somebody else's innocent tapping or whistling or whatever, because that's how society sees it. So hard relate to this post, because that is exactly, I've had exactly these problems. I've had people saying, Why are you so angry about this? What's wrong with you? They didn't mean it. You're overreacting. All of this stuff. And I'm not overreacting. I'm overwhelmed.
I think it's interesting to read what Justin says here. For the post overall, Justin says totally relatable, and exactly so. And then the last thing he says is society sucks. And I just have to say, yep, you're right, Justin, society sucks. But, you know, it's the one we've got.
Anyone up for starting a cult? I mean, I'm only slightly joking. Can we have a commune somewhere?
I've done it before.
Like,
it's
the
good
alternative
fun.
society seems to be, I don't know, just seems really appealing. I don't know what the other.
I was at Glastonbury once, and I started the Cult of the Sandal. And having picked up a guy's sandal that got stuck in the mud, myself and about 75 other disciples followed this guy around for several fields, following him as though he was the saint. And it was the cult of this guy's sandal. Happy days.
Look, Jules, we've all gone to a festival, stayed up a little bit too long, and joined a cult. So I think that's absolutely brilliant.
I didn't join a cult. I started the.
You started. Cult. Okay. We haven't all started a cult. I mean, we've all joined one, haven't we? I mean, that's just daily life. So I think that's hilarious. I think that's brilliant. I don't know about sandals though. There are some sensory issues with sandals. Sand under the toes. Can we have the cult of the optional footwear of your choice? Is that perhaps a middle ground? I don't know.
Getting back to something a bit more serious, Justin says that he's been told exactly the same things when he's been angry. The same things that you've been told, Liz.
Yeah, I think when everyone around you doesn't have a problem with whatever it is that is causing the overwhelm, you're basically the fly in the ointment. You're the one wanting something to change when nobody else needs it to change. So that becomes the problem. You're the person asking for something different when nobody else needs it. People see that as a problem. I think if we can change the way society sees accommodations from you're causing a problem to, oh, you need something, you should be given it, then we may, I think changing the attitude from I'm not causing a problem, I'm asking for a change so that we don't have a problem. If people can understand that, I think that would go a long way to, just making life easier for a lot of people.
Justin's still responding. He says that he's the one who's being the arsehole, or is told that he's the one being the arsehole, and the other person is obviously correct. And I think we all share that, Justin. We have that experience often enough when we get to the point where we say no, or we refuse, or things just get too much. And to me, it starts right in the family for most people. And I think I was very fortunate of having autistic parents, which meant that the meltdown kid didn't get that ingrained pattern of behaviour around them, because they had enough empathy with that meltdown kid because of their own meltdowns to be a better environment. I think most people are in a situation where, even if they've got autistic parents, the parents are under society's cosh and society's rules, or don't even know they're autistic, and so families get this unfortunate set of routines and behaviours that go around an autistic kid that we then takes a toll of us as we get older.
I had a situation this week where my own internalized the internalizing other people's feelings about what I should do. I internalized the idea that I was the arsehole. I became the arsehole in a situation where I absolutely wasn't, because I didn't want to make my life exponentially more difficult to solve somebody else's problem. And in my head, I was like, well, that makes me the arsehole. I'm the arsehole in the situation because I'm not making my life more difficult. It's, God, you know, and I'm somebody who's generally fairly forgiving of myself now, anyway. I mean, most of my life I haven't been. And I can still make myself the arsehole in the situation where I am objectively and subjectively not. So this kind of, this internalizing of how we feel other people, the internalizing of how other people think we should behave and how we feel we ought to behave and be in order to be accepted by other people in society is a massive problem. And it, when it's internalized, it trips us up from the inside. It's like running a race, running a hurdle race, but all the hurdles are in our heads. You know, we've got both got our shoelaces tied together. It hampers us from the very beginning, this internalized issue.
That's all very wise, Liz. I think I need to keep up with Justin's conversation. He said that I'm the one who's being the arsehole and the other person considers themselves to be correct. But he also says that when he's in a depressive state, that's when his emotions come out with more frequency. And I asked him what irritation from depression, and he says frustration, anger, frustration, sadness. So a lot of the time you see anger, frustration, sadness, anger and frustration and the big emotions, but they're actually coming from a position of the autistic person being in a depressive state anyway. And these are all these are symptoms, these are signs, these are expressions, these are asking for help, these are frustrated ways of trying to get heard. They of themselves are not the problem. They are signs that somebody requires aid and help. And I believe that many of the things that are put out there for us, whether they be therapy or whether they be things to instruct us, they miss the point that the actual emotion is appropriate. It's appropriate to the circumstance.
Well, I think sometimes, I know for me, it's certainly an issue with alexithymia, which is difficulty connecting to the experience of your own emotion as well as other people's. Sometimes it's not necessarily both aspects of it, but it's a difficulty connecting with emotion, naming emotion and feeling emotion. And I know that quite often when other people can see my emotion, so when it's expressed and when it's explosive, when other people see the anger or the frustration, it's often quite a big aspect of it is that it has become big enough for me to feel. And if I can, what I'm trying to do through improving my interoception and mindfulness is to try and understand and experience my emotions before they get so big that they come out in an explosion. I describe it a bit like, you know, the frosted glass you get in bathrooms and shower screens. So my emotions are on the other side of that, and I only really get to see what they are when they're big enough, they're like pressed up against the glass or they've burst through it. So I think that certainly for me, that's something that goes on with my emotions. I know that for a lot of autistic people who don't struggle with identifying their own emotions, but struggle with expressing it and communicating with other people, usually because other people don't think the thing is uncomfortable or too loud or whatever, find that people don't believe them when they say, I'm feeling upset, because we don't do the same performative fucking acting as neurotypicals do or as allistic people do when they feel an emotion. We don't necessarily, like, I can be upset but not crying, but if I'm not crying, people don't take what I say seriously, so I have to cry, otherwise they won't understand that I'm upset. I think people have a difficulty understanding, like intellectually understanding, if someone says, I'm really upset or I'm really angry, if you're not doing the facial expression, the emoting, all of the acting that goes along with it, people find it very difficult to understand that. It's not an excuse, it's just sort of a reason, perhaps. And in fact, that makes it harder sometimes, I think, to express your emotions when you know what they are and you feel like you want to express them, because you're like, oh God, I'm going to have to do the face dance. I'm going to have to make sure my body language looks right and that I cry at the appropriate moment. So it makes it really hard for us to seek help and talk to people about how we're feeling, because if we don't do all the right extra stuff, it, it's like talking to a brick wall for us. They just don't get it. They don't respond in the same way because we're not giving the right signals.
Well, I'm hoping we've got time to move to the next Facebook post, because it's from the neurodivergent experience, and they have a podcast. We always want people to use the audio model and listen to other people speaking. So we've got to make sure that we get this linked on our website to this one.
Let's do it. So this is shared by Jordan James, the autistic photographer, who we've shared stuff from Jordan quite a lot. He's in America at the moment. Hope you're having a massively amazing time if you're listening. So the post is only a few hours from the recording the much anticipated episode of the Neurodivergent Experience podcast with Steve Silberman, who is the author of Neurotribes. Steve's book is such a detailed and powerful history of autism and how we've been badly treated over the last century. It was a tough listen at times, especially about what people have done and still do to autistic children. His knowledge and insight helped pave the way for a whole new type of positive advocacy that I am certainly part of. Neurotribes lit a fire inside me that will never go out. I will be part of the change. I refuse to accept the way things are. My people will have equality if it's the last thing I do. For this and more episodes, follow the link in the comments section below. So if you go to our page, you can see that post. Follow the link from there. So it's the Neurotribes is the book by Steve Silberman. The Neurodivergent Experience is the podcast.
Oh, quick, we've got enough time. Let's go to the next one, Liz, because we can get this Audible in before the end of the programme.
Oh, can we do it? Okay, I have to speak really fast. That's not a problem. Yep. I normally do. Oh, God,
well,
no, it's really long.
Down, can't they?
Okay. Oh, no, this post is really, really, really long. I'll just read out the main image. So we've got it's a colour spectrum on the background from sort of red through amber to green, so traffic lights kind of idea. And the question is that really neutral, or are you just used to it? So in the red section, these are things so normalised that people think they're neutral, but are actually negative terms, and they are disorder, deficit, dysfunction, symptom, and comorbidity. In the amber section, we have normalized negativity, so things that make people think they're positive but are actually neutral terms: natural variation, difference, neurodivergence, trait, and co-occurring condition. And in the green section, we have sometimes unnecessarily so, but actually positive terms are the next step in human evolution, gift, sunshine and rainbows, superpower, and diagnostic dance partner. So I think this is a slightly tongue-in-cheek thing here, because I have to say I'm very much in the neutral amber side, and I think the green side is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek toxic positivity thing here.
Yeah, we need restraints.
Although
both
diagnostic
directions.
dance partner, I have to say, is a beautiful phrase. And I might start using that just in relation to myself.
As my life issues against overestimated abilities and pressure, I certainly find gift and superpower negative. So we certainly want restraints from both the colours on the wings of it. That's a message for the middle column. Like I can get positives also from the word deficit if it's not overdone, because sometimes it has a practicality of getting something done about gaps in ability.
I think the interesting thing about this post to me is that Ortball has had to put an edit right at the top and say, please read the entire post and all the
Yeah.
comments before jumping to the worst possible conclusions, because they're making a point, and I don't think they're actually intending the green to be the positive terms. They are actually saying unnecessarily so, and they are saying these don't work either, kind of thing. Gifts, sunshines and rainbows and superpowers. What they're really saying, I think, to me, is that this normalised negativity, that's the important bit. Swapping disorder for natural variation, we know you still mean disorder. Swapping difference for deficit, we still know you mean deficit. Swapping neurodivergence for dysfunction, we still know people mean that.
I don't think that's the. I think the point is that when you change the language, you change the meaning. Because if you mean deficit, say deficit. If you mean difference, say difference. I think the point is that when you start to shift your language, you start to see things differently. So by continuing to use words like deficit and disorder, you're never going to see these things as variations or differences. But if you start to shift the language, you start to shift your perspective. And hopefully I did a good enough job at pointing out that the green column was very much tongue-in-cheek. But I do think Maurice had a good point about deficit actually sometimes being a positive word, in that it can elicit a positive outcome. Because if you say deficit, dysfunction, symptom, those are words that elicit a response within the medical community. If you went to a doctor and said, I have absolutely no deficits and no symptoms and no disorders, but I'd like support, they'd be like, well, what do you want support with? So the negative, the deficit-based language has a place in terms of asking for support. You don't need support with something you already do really well. So yeah, nobody likes to be seen as disordered or as a set of symptoms. However, in terms of accessing support, that's just the way it is at the moment. Things may change, but yeah.
Okay, Liz, before you wrap us up, Justin's put some details in. He says, let's go. We are all individuals and we are all human beings, individual and human, unique. Deficits, exclamation mark.
I will still use my balance deficit as an excuse not to ride a bike. But that's just my personal choice. I shall also refer to my dyspraxia as my diagnostic dance partner as a reason why I'm not a good dancer, because I just love the phrase diagnostic dance partner. I think that's beautiful. Anyway, this has been Spectrum Voices Conversations. It's Sunday the 28th of April. We've spent an hour and a half having a little conversation about stuff on Facebook. We will be back next Sunday at the same time, 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you and good night.